All right, we'll try this again because we had some problems yesterday, didn't we, with the live stream. I had problems with my microphone and it was incredibly frustrating. I think I may have called some of you a-holes as a result, and I'm very sorry about that. If anybody caught that, that was me very frustrated at the end of the stream. TikTok is notifying viewers that you're live. Okay. Hurry up then, TikTok. Hello to everybody joining. Hi Kenki, how are you, mate? Are you okay? Hello Sarah. Hello to everybody joining in the chat. How are you? How do you feel about Rishi Sanook, or rather, if you heard Joe Biden yesterday, Rashid Sanook, I think that's what he called him, Rashid Sanook. Joe Biden, President of the United States. Rashid Sanook. Couldn't even get the UK Prime Minister's name right. But then, you know, we have had 3 in the space of 5 seconds. It says some comments were filtered to protect the community's experience here on the screen. So whoever's saying nasty stuff, stop it. Yes, Biden is a joke as well, says Sarah. Did you see him get lost in the garden yesterday? He got lost in the White House garden. He literally just wandered off into the woods. And it was like, can I go this way? And they were like, you can go any way you want, sir, but it's this way back to home where you live. Swearing, says King. Oh, that's why the comments were filtered. People are swearing. Yeah, people forget that Biden's an app. Sorry, Biden. Biden's not an app. TikTok's an app for kids, you know. And it certainly helped me not swear as much moving on to TikTok. I used to swear like a trooper on YouTube, but I don't swear as much on here now. He keeps glitching, says Sarah. Yeah, he does. Rashid Sanook is our new Prime Minister. I'm going to call him Rashid Sanook, I think, from forever. From this point on, I'm going to call him Rashid Sanook in honour of the Biden, who is walking off the back of the stage, shaking hands with people that aren't there, walking around with like that with his hands in front of him like a dementia patient, and, you know, getting lost in the woods and, yeah, getting things wrong. And then the New York Times, was it the New York Times or the Washington Post the other day, they wrote an article saying about Liz Truss, saying who actually is in control in the UK. You're not going to ask about who's in control closer to home, but you're going to ask in the UK. Washington Post, what's going on there? Lukeman says, I don't Rishi as a South Asian guy. You don't like Rishi as a South Asian guy. Does that mean that you're a South Asian guy, or you don't like Rishi because he's a South Asian guy? You can like people because you can not like Rishi because he's a millionaire banker, Goldman Sachs banker working on behalf of the World Economic Forum. You can dislike him for those things. You know, bringing up the Asian thing is I don't quite know why you did that. I'm going to call Rishi some other stuff I can't write here, says Kinky Malenki. Stick to the Goldman Sachs banker, millionaire, married to a billionaire with non-dom status, so she doesn't pay tax in this country, World Economic Forum wonk, who basically is going to rule this country on behalf of Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab rather than on behalf of you, which is what should happen in a democracy. Democracy, it's from, was it demos and krakos, were it's 2 old Greek words Is it Latin? Can't remember. But what it literally means is the people rule. Rule of the people. Democracy actually means rule of the people. How is any of this rule of the people? Well, it's not, of course, and that's the point of me going live today, is to just reiterate once again, we don't have a democracy, and all the media are lying to you about everything, and I mean everything. And yeah, the important things in the world they are totally and utterly ignoring. It's like the World Economic Forum is now fully in power in the UK. Social credit system coming soon, says Sarah. You will eat the bugs. And you will enjoy it. Yeah, nobody voted for this, did they? Eh? Nobody in this country voted for it. It's not a democracy. If you want any proof that it's not a democracy, I mean, look at my video I did earlier. Terrysaurus Rex says, always a new day. Some decisions turn out good, some worse. I'm not sure how Rishi Sunak becoming Prime Minister is going to be good, considering his background. I'm wondering if people in this country will actually vote for a brown man in a general election, says Greg. This is a good point, Greg. There is a theory. I heard somebody the other day on TikTok. He was saying how he thinks that the Liz Truss thing was a plant and it was a ploy to try and crash the economy to bring in Rishi Sunak, because they wouldn't let a brown man crash the economy in the same way that Liz Truss does. And it's all a plan to bring in this social credit system. I don't know about that. What I do know is that, there's certainly there was a lot of people on TikTok I know that were having fun attacking the racists by saying, you won't be able to eat pork pretty soon, and you won't, you won't be able to drink alcohol, Tichoma says Bitcoin. Yes, if you want to fight back against this, by the way, this thing that's coming in, this World Economic Forum, one world government that they think is coming in, buy Bitcoin. That's your safety valve. Get out of this system. Elections now, for God's sake, says S. Well, here's the thing, S. If we had an election, we've got a first past the post system in the UK. So if we have an election, you're going to get a Prime Minister either from the Tory party or from Labour. It's one of those two. And right now, you can't distinguish between them. They are all, Labour aren't Labour, Tories aren't Tory. They are all WEF. They are all World Economic Forum. That's what they are. They're ruling on behalf of Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates, not you and I. That's what they're doing right now. And if you want proof of how, election is not going to change anything, I'm going to tell you something right now that might frighten you if you haven't seen the documentary. The Labour Party is institutionally racist and operates a hierarchy of racism. If you've seen the Labour Party, no, Labour isn't the lesser of two evils. Yes, no, they're not. Same as the Democrats in the United States are not the lesser of two evils. I would argue actually the Democrats in the United States are worse than the Republicans. I know that might sound hyperbolic, but it's not. The Democrats are worse. If you actually look at what they're doing right now, they're far more warmongering than Trump was, aren't they? And I'm not saying Trump was a good guy. I'm not. I can't stand Trump, watch my videos. I'm highly critical of him. But I'm highly critical of the Democrats too, for the same reason that I'm highly critical of Labour. The Labour Party, if you watch the Al Jazeera documentary called Labour Files, which is based upon an internal leak from the Labour Party with their own emails, using their own emails, they have proven, I mean, if you watch the documentary, I don't know anybody who's watched the documentary and said, okay, that they've proven that the Labour Party is institutionally racist, and they say that it operates with a hierarchy of racism. And you've got people like Diane Abbott in that documentary saying these very things. And nobody in this country has pointed it out. No media has pointed it out at all. A guy rang up LBC the other day. I wish I could show it you. He rang up LBC and wanted to talk to the guy who was doing the call-in about the Al Jazeera Labour Files documentary. And the guy just said, okay, thanks, mate, moving on. They cut him dead. You can't talk about that in this country. This is a documentary that is proven beyond any doubt in my mind that the Labour Party, whilst going overboard with the anti-Semitism, accusations of anti-Semitic racists, and booting out lifelong Labour members who were Jewish Labour members, and attacking Jewish Labour members more than any other. They're 7 times more likely to be booted out for anti-Semitism in the Labour Party than Jewish people were, than ordinary people. But also, if you're black, Asian or ethnic minority in the Labour Party and you have a complaint of racism, they don't even look at it. Now, this is a documentary that was aired a good few weeks ago, and not only are the media in this country, not only have the media not talked about it. I was around my mum's today, and she had on Prime Minister's Questions or whatever it is today, and Keir Starmer was going at Rishi Sunak, was going at him. The Tories are 32 points behind Labour in the polls. 32. They need something to attack Labour with, don't they? They need something to attack Labour with. They're 32 points behind in the polls. They're desperate for anything to be able to smear Labour with something. Well, here's a documentary that proves beyond reasonable doubt that the Labour Party operate a hierarchy of racism against black, Asian and ethnic minorities. And not only have the media not said a thing and are silencing any talk of it in this country, but the Tories haven't said a thing either. Now, somebody said, oh, that's because the Tories are worse or just as bad. That's never stopped them before with anything. And here's a documentary that charges them. The Labour Party won't even come out and say it's not true. The Labour Party just came out in response to the documentary, and if you look at their response, the Labour Party's response, they just said, we are a rules-based organisation. That's it. That's all they said. They didn't say the documentary's wrong. They didn't say the documentary's false. They didn't say these accusations of racism in our party are false. They're terrible, like you would do if they were false. Even if they weren't, you would, no. They've just said we're a rules-based organisation. That's it. It's like when but accusations of anti-Semitism, they'll blow that up out of that sort of racism. Accusations of anti-Semitism, they'll blow that up out of all proportion. Isn't it interesting right now, in our media, I was around Mum's earlier, I watched that, she switched over from that because I was complaining about Keir Starmer to the news, and the news started talking about Ye. Kanye he used to be called, it's called Ye now. Okay, you want me to call me Ye? You Ye, fine, I'll call you Ye. But his anti-Semitic rant that he went on, by the way, listen to his words. Listen to the whole thing. Don't just concentrate on the words that the news pick up. Listen to the whole thing. All right? But they'll concentrate on him being this rapper over in America. They'll talk about him saying something slightly racist, but his actual institutional racism in the Labour Party, and they won't bring it up at all. Why? Why? Why not? And why won't the Conservatives use that to bash Labour over the head with? Why not? Is it because they're both two wings of the same bird? Is it because a vote, an election, is pointless? Do you see what I mean? All Labour are is Tories in red ties. That's it. It's a one world government now. It's the WEF. That's what we've got. A Goldman Sachs banker, millionaire, married to a billionaire with non-dom status that doesn't pay tax in this country or didn't, avoided it, with really dodgy investments. One of which was in a Russian company, or rather a Russian outlet. They wouldn't pull out of Russia until it became a thing. Ex-Goldman Sachs banker and WEF member. Who do you think he's going to... And if you pick Starmer, do you think there's going to be any different? Do you think Starmer's going to say no? They're all going towards the same target. And anybody in Labour Party or the Tories who has called this out, they've got rid of and they've ejected. They've called and they've ejected them from the Labour Party. And right now the media are not going to talk about any of this, and the Conservatives aren't going to use it to bash the Labour over the head with. Institutional racism, while at the same time they are saying, oh, look how racist Kanye is. Because he said some stuff on a podcast that nobody really was listening to. There's no point in election. No point. These are that Labour and Conservatives now are in lockstep. This argument you've got down going, it's complete theatre. They are all in it together. It's a big club. You and I are not in it. They don't care about racism unless it's against... Well, they don't care against racism unless somebody is saying something negative about Israel or positive about Palestine, in which case they'll call that racism. But they won't actually investigate cases of racism in their party. And the other party, after finding out that their opposition party, Labour, are institutional racist and operate a hierarchy of racism, they won't call it out despite the fact that they are 32 points behind in the polls. What does that tell you about our democracy? We don't have one. They have stolen it. They have hijacked it. We are pretty much ruled by the World Economic Forum right now. These guys in Westminster, forget them. Forget them. They're not working for you. They are in the pockets of Washington and the WEF. Bill Gates has more control. Bill Gates has more of a say over who is Prime Minister in this country than all of the people in this country together. Bill Gates. He has more of a say over who our Prime Minister is than all the country combined. Klaus Schwab has more influence in our politics, has more of a say over who is Prime Minister in this country and what this country does than all of the people in it. Just think about that. And ask yourself why it is that the Conservative Party, knowing that this documentary by Al Jazeera has proven that Labour, using their own documents, is institutionally racist, and they won't even bring it up. They won't say a thing. And if you bring it up on LBC or any media in this country, they shut you down like that. Al Jazeera went to the Labour Party conference and starting to ask them, the MPs, about it. They wouldn't answer. They wouldn't answer any questions on it at all. What does that tell you about the accuracy of it? If they wouldn't even say, no, it's not true. How dare you? I desire frosted clams. What a name. I desire frosted clams. So it's funny how Ye called out Israel for controlling everything. Israel denied it, but then Ye lost everything. Isn't that weird? That's weird, isn't it? So he called out Israel for controlling everything, and then what? He's lost his billions overnight. Isn't that weird? Eh? They're all on the same side. Don't get fooled, says Maria Michelle. Yes, they are all on the same side. There's no Labour, there's no Tory. They are all on the same side, and it's not your side. They're not on the side of the people in this country. They're not on the side of democracy. If they were on the side of democracy, they would have come out and demanded that Julian Assange is free, and they would have told America to sod off. He's key to it all, you know. With him in jail, journalism is in jail, the media are lying to us about everything. He would tell us the truth. If you want to know the truth about the World Economic Forum, free Julian Assange. If you want to know the truth about who went to Epstein's Island, free Julian Assange. If you want to know the truth as to who in the Labour Party are really institutionally racist, free Julian Assange. If you want to know which Labour Party members were friends with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, free Julian Assange. If you want to know why Peter Mandelson was in Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book 14 times, free Julian Assange. This is why I've been talking about him so much. It's not because I'm some stan for him. I've never met him. He might be a complete asshole for all I know. But it's what he stands for. It's the fourth estate. Without a fourth estate, without journalism, without a viable media holding power to account, you get what we've got right now. Two parties ruling over us like pharaohs rather than actually governing us with a democratic mandate. I want to know why it is. Why is it that, I mean, as I Desire Frosted Clam said there, what is it about Israel that you can't mention, you can't say anything negative about them? Why is it? I mean, if there's not a conspiracy, if there's not some Israeli conspiracy, why is it when anybody comes out and says something negative about Israel, whether it's true or not, they instantly get cancelled? You're proving the conspiracy is true. You're proving Ye's point when he loses everything after criticising Israel. Remember, Kanye said some pretty nasty things about black people, you know. He said some pretty, I say nasty things. He said, that's not correct. He said some pretty awful things about George Floyd, I would say. Saying that he wasn't actually, you know, the guy's knee wasn't really on his neck. And that really wasn't the thing that's what he was saying. There's anti-black racism right there. I mean, personally, I support his right to say it. Should be able to say anything you want. You either believe in free speech or not. But it is curious as to who they'll weaponise and what allegations of racism they'll blow up out of proportion. And well, you've got an entire Labour Party that is, quote, institutionally racist and operates a hierarchy of racism, according to the Al Jazeera documentary, based on their own files, their own emails, and nobody will talk about it. But Ye saying something negatively about Israeli Jews, that's all over the media worldwide. It's interesting, isn't it? FTF 973, what do you think WEF, Gates and Schwab have to gain from all this suppression? Well, it's money and control. Bill Gates has been buying up land in America like nobody's business. I think he's one of the biggest landowners in America now. Why do you think that is? He's going to have locust farms and stuff like that. You can see it. Klaus Schwab is going to tell you to eat the bugs. Bill Gates is going to grow them on his farm. How many? I know it's a massive amount of farmland he's bought in the last few years. Bill Gates land purchase. Bill Gates is the biggest private owner of farmland in the United States now, and this was last year. And Bill Gates has just won legal approval to buy 2,100 acres of North Dakota farmland worth $13.5 million. That was in 5th of July 2022. So this is after he became the biggest private owner of farmland in the United States. Remember Bill Gates, he wanted how did he get to be this billionaire? Well, he got the monopoly on the operating system for computers. He gave it away for free, but then obviously if you wanted an upgrade, it cost you $200 or whatever it was. That's how he became a billionaire. Now he's going to monopolise the bug industry. That's what they have to gain. And obviously global control. They'll look at us like, well, like they already do. Like we're commodities. I'm American, not Bill Gates. Trump owns Trump owns our conservatives. Right, in the UK? No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. America basically runs the UK. That's the problem. It's not Trump. It doesn't matter whether Trump's in power or Biden's in power. The UK is still his little bitch. You know, it doesn't matter who is in power in the United States. The UK is still its little bitch. Does anything it wants. When Trump wanted the UK to steal Iran's oil tanker and stop that oil going to Venezuela, I think it was, what happened? Oh, the SAS parasailed onto it. Basically, Trump turned the UK's armed forces into pirates. The same, you can say the same about Biden now. Look at Biden. Look, you know, Zelensky and Russia were going to be talking about peace in March. Biden, Americans, one call to Britain. Off goes Boris Johnson to Ukraine. Scuppers it. Scuppers any peace talks. It's not Trump that owns the Conservatives. It's the United States that owns Britain. Now, you could theorise as to why that is. Personally, I think it must be blackmail. They must be blackmailing the United Kingdom. The United States must. I mean, if you look at what's happened with the Keystone XL pipeline as an example of blackmail from the United States, then, well, I mean, who blew up the Keystone XL pipeline, do you think? Do you think Russia blew up their own pipeline? Doubtful, isn't it? We all know who blew up that pipeline. You know, who hated the pipeline? The United States. Who sanctioned every company working on the pipeline? The United States. Whose president said on record, if Russia invades Ukraine, we will put an end to the Keystone, not the Keystone pipeline. Nord Stream, not Keystone, Nord Stream pipeline. Who hates the Nord Stream pipeline? America. Nord Stream pipeline, America. Said that if Russia invades Ukraine, and it was America. Who bombed the Nord Stream pipeline? Oh, Russia, right? Makes no sense, does it? Well, Sweden, Denmark and Germany, you won't hear much of this on the media, but Sweden, Denmark and Germany held did an inquiry as to who blew up that pipeline. And they are both refusing to say. Sweden and Germany are refusing to say who blew up their pipeline. They know, and the reason they say they are sealing their findings is because, quote, national security. Because it is in the national security interests. In other words, it was America and they can't say. Why? Because America will blackmail them. Maybe you'll get tapes of, you know, their prime minister or whatever it is in some house somewhere with a prostitute, etc. You know, see my point. Or maybe even a child, who knows. But that's the way it's done. The United States will bomb its enemies and blackmail its friends. And that's the way it has been running the country for decades, running the world for decades. That's the way it's been done. Through blackmail, through bombing. And we go along with it, do anything they want, because they've got the goods on us. Simple as that. Why else would Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell be at the Queen's own personal residence in Scotland? Why else does this person who has never made a stock trade in his life know so many rich and powerful people and Hollywood stars and presidents and politicians and judges, and why else would these people know all those people and be a billionaire based upon it, having not made a single trade at all? Apparently that's what's been said. They all go to him for this financial advice. A financial noob, he doesn't know what he's talking about with it. What's the answer though, says Vivs? The answer is Bitcoin and non-violent civil disobedience. That's the answer. Wow, there's a lot of comments. How can I contact you? If you click on my name, you click on the list of links. It'll say my website link. Click through to that, and you can see my website there. It's gordon@gordondimmack.com. Sign up to my website, by the way, people. Go through to my website and sign up, and you'll get notifications of when I go live or when I drop any videos in future. Yes, Biden did it, says John Joe O'Neill. He wants to make sure the European buy expensive American gas. He's talking about Nord Stream there. This is the theory. I said the other day in a video, if you look at the amount of casualties in 9/11, the amount of people that died in 9/11, I'm talking from the two buildings and the Pentagon, etc. 2,000 people, 3,000 people, more than that, way more than that, I will charge, will die this winter in Europe because they can't heat their homes or eat food as a result of that pipeline being, what's the word? Well, blown up. As a result of that one single act, more people in Europe will die this winter for sure than died in the Twin Towers. Do you think there'll be any news coverage about it? Do you think there'll be any retribution? Of course not. Why? Because America have got the goods on everybody. They'll release the Epstein tapes. They've got them, by the way. We know this. We knew this from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, that the FBI have got the tapes of these famous people. But none of them. Apparently, Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person in the world, think about this, she's the only person in history to traffic children to nobody. She's in prison for trafficking children to nobody. Isn't that weird? She trafficked the children, but the people she trafficked to, they haven't been prosecuted. Harvey says, in the same way all these Russians fall out of windows. You know who else falls out of windows? You know who else have a habit of falling out of windows? Not just the Russians, the British. Do you know there's that many people in history, British people, spies and what have you, that have fallen out of windows? We had to come up with a word for it. Fallen out of a window. Yeah, that guy fell out of a window. Is too long a sentence because we do it so often. Defenestration. Yeah, that guy was defenestrated. We came up with a word for fell out of a window, the British did. Trick on it. And look up James Le Mesurier as well while you're at it. I love how the US was getting the blame when it wasn't even them, it was Poland. Well, if it was Poland, it was doing it at the US's instruction. Whoever it was, the US were behind it, for sure. Mehmed Pound says, US literally can't stop war, they make too much dollars on it. Not just that, I honestly feel as if the money-making thing is just a happy byproduct. What they're actually trying to do here is destabilise Russia to get a new dictator that they can put in Russia the same way as they put Yeltsin in and start stealing all their resources and the oil. That's what it is, because Russia is an oil-rich, resource-rich nation. It's got plenty of resources. It's got no problem. It's self-sufficient. All these sanctions that we've put on Russia because of Ukraine war, all these global sanctions that America and Britain have put on them, it's only hurting us. It's not hurting Russia. If you actually look at the statistics, Russia is one of the best performing economies this year. It's up like 6%. Where's our inflation's in double digits now. It's over 10%. In America, in Russia, they're fine because they can close off from the rest of the world. They don't rely on imports. You know, they've got their own stuff. They can make their own food. They've got their own water. They've got their own oil. Right, we're fine. You carry on with your nonsense, sanctioning us with your your banking system that none of us are going to use anymore. You know, Russia and China are joining forces to create a new currency, one that is going to be, by the look of it, the world's reserve currency. They're doing it. This is not me guessing. They're doing it. The days of the dollar are over, and the United States is panicking. They've got no oil. They haven't got enough oil. They can't produce enough themselves. They're at capacity, and they're still only producing about 58% of the oil that they need in America. They're getting some from Canada, but with regards to everywhere else, nobody wants to deal with them. Venezuela have told them to get stuffed because of all the times that America have tried coups in their country over the last 20, 30 years. You know, installing Juan Guaido as their president because they didn't like Maduro, citing, quote, human rights abuses. Meanwhile, America is the biggest violator of human rights on the planet, and it's not even close, and Israel is next. And let's face it, Israel is just the 51st state of America. That's pretty much it. Why else would America send $3.8 billion a year to Israel for their, quote, defense system, but only $65 million to their territory, Puerto Rico, after Puerto Rico got hit by a hurricane and didn't have any electric for 6 weeks? They sent them $65 million. There you go, $65 million. On the same day, they sent $652 million in weapons to Ukraine. And meanwhile, they send $3.8 billion a year to Israel to fund their Iron Dome. Israel, by the way, a country with universal health care, something that Americans at home don't get. And we can't talk about Israel negatively, because we'll be labelled anti-Semitic and we'll be cancelled and we'll be pushed to the edges of society. It doesn't matter whether it is true, what we're saying, and it doesn't matter whether we can back it up with things like, you know, Beit Salem. Every human rights organisation on the planet, including Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, labelling Israel an apartheid state. We can't talk about that. If you could talk about that, you're a racist. Meanwhile, they'll look the other way to actual institutional racism in the Labour Party against black, Asian and ethnic minorities. They'll look the other way and they won't even talk about it. But Kanye West says Jewish in the wrong way, and all the media are up in arms about it. They're trying to fool you into ushering in this era that is against your best interests. Do you want to answer Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates? Because it seems like our government does, and the opposition. Easily Gaming says, I'd go so far as to saying violence is the answer to be honest. You and my missus should speak, Easily, because she's always saying, just chop their heads off. Always. Yeah, somebody else saying, this gobby chick saying riots are long overdue. I think this is one of the reasons why they're keeping it quiet, by the way, because they know people would not be happy about this at all. And it's gone, they're just letting it, it's gone so far now that there's no reverse. They can't stop it, seemingly. They're just going to go and go and go and go and go. Mum says, your thoughts on what's happening in Pakistan. I don't know a great deal about what's happening in Pakistan. What I do know is, from what I've seen, is this. Imran Khan was ousted in a US-led soft coup. The US basically sent a letter to members of the party that were in coalition with Imran Khan, saying, you know, because Imran Khan wanted to get oil from Russia and gas from Russia. Because, you know, where else are they going to get it from? You know, they're going to get it from, well, you got Russia or Iran. And America saying, no, you can't get it from there. So America, you know, there were people, the string of journalists and politicians in and out of the American embassy running up to it. Next thing you know, there's this letter. The government collapses. Imran Khan's out. Despite the fact that they had this letter and it was given to the military. So ever since then, it's just been, you know, the government trying to make sure that Imran Khan can't stand again in an election because he's got so much support now in Pakistan. So that's my thoughts on it. Bitcoin is a complete joke. You can't even see how the money goes up and down, says. Yeah, you can. You can see I had a notification from Coinbase earlier that it had gone up 4.5% today. I don't quite know what you mean by that. Maybe easily gaming. Yeah, you and my missus are definitely going to get on, mate. They've took the piss for too long. They need dragging out of Parliament by the masses. And Bitcoin is unregulated. That's the point. That's why it's a good thing. That's why it's a good thing, because it's unregulated and people hold the ledger. It's open. You can see where the coins are. You can see where the wallet is. That you just can't see who's behind the whole wallet. Although you could find out if you were a state actor, for instance. But that's the whole point about it being unregulated. It's a good thing. Digital currencies can be programmed. Bitcoin you can buy anything with, or you will be able to. Gordon, I love your TikToks, etc. Can I ask though, what's your deal? Are you a journalist? Says accountant, clean and tea. Yeah, I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist and podcaster. The podcast's coming back, by the way. I've got to send out some invites tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah, I'm a journalist. I was in London. Well, I'm down there quite often for the Assange events, and I've covered other events too. I've covered marches for Black Lives Matter. I've covered events pro and anti-Brexit marches. I'll talk to anybody. So yeah, I am a journalist. I've done work for RT in the past. RT gave me some work a couple of years ago, but that quickly stopped. I could see very early on with RT that they only wanted stuff that was anti-British from me. They only wanted me to do stuff on the UK, and I didn't want to be known as the guy who hated his country, because I don't. And they always complained when I did videos about America, even though they said that they were okay with me doing that. But they complained about it, so we kind of I did about 5 videos for them, that's it. But yeah, I'm a journalist. Matt Jade is in the house, so show some love to Matt Jade. Go and follow him on TikTok. The guy's awesome. We did a podcast not long ago. You're going to have to come on my podcast, Matt. Come on again. Yeah, I'd love you. I'll send you an email tomorrow, mate. All right. I showed the Free Press physically under attack by IDF. It's just been flagged as an unverified content. This is what happens. You show proof of it, and they say, "Oh no, it's unverified." You're just guessing, no facts, says Ronald. What about Ronald? What am I just guessing on? If you tell me what I'm guessing on, I'll give you the backup and the facts and the stuff for you to go and check it out. And by the way, don't if you think I am guessing, go and check what I'm saying. You know, don't take anybody's word for gospel. There are people out there that you can trust, obviously, and you will learn that as you go. But check and check again. So if there is something that I'm just guessing on, please, you know, tell me why I am. And there's a member of Congress who was bought 5 million of shares in shipping company, says the Toad 9. There's a statistic I found the other day about Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is the Democratic leader of the House. And her son... her son has a better record on the stock market, on trading stocks, than Warren Buffett. I kid you not. Investing in Chinese technical firms, investing in Chinese telecoms. Nancy Pelosi's son Paul was involved in 5 companies from her stock market investments. Company co-founded by Nancy Pelosi's son charged with securities fraud. They're all at it. You know, this is blatant insider trading. Do you remember Nancy Pelosi was asked, I've seen this on tape as well, she was asked direct, do you think that people are like, do you think that politicians shouldn't be able to benefit from this? I mean, they obviously know who's going to get the contracts before anybody else. So they know when the stocks are going to go up. It's a piece of cake for them to make millions of dollars doing this. And she just went, no, I think it's fine. This is somebody who is a career-long politician who is now worth over $100 million. Who was it that said if you're a career politician and you end up worth millions of dollars, you're corrupt? Who was it that said that? Yeah, so Nancy Pelosi's son, better than Warren Buffett at trading stocks, apparently. How about inflation being caused by high wages, says Ian Laurie, while trying to convince people immigration was wrong? No, inflation isn't being caused by high wages. Inflation is being caused by corporate greed. There's enough money to go around. There's enough money for high wages. If you actually look at the 70s, there's a graph that goes up like that, and it's corporate profits, right? And with it is the wages, and they're going up together like that in the up 50s, 40s, 50s, 70s, and then the 70s hit, neoliberalism hits, and corporate profits keep going up, and wages stagnate and stay the same. There's enough money for higher wages, more than enough money. The problem that we've got is corporate greed. It's not high wages that are causing inflation, it's corporate greed. And it's, I mean, I was talking to the missus the other day, and I said, you know, capitalism is basically, it's not just dying right now. It died in 2008, capitalism did. It died in 2008 with the financial crash, and since then, it's just been on life support ever since. I said to her, it's like in 2008, massive holes appeared in the capitalism dam, you know, and water started flooding through, and they were like, how are we going to stop all this? So what they did was just printed trillions of money and stuffed it in the holes. And obviously that's not going to work. You know, this money that they printed, it all went shot straight to the top. It all shot straight to the top 1%. The top 1% since 2008 tripled their wealth in this country, tripled their wealth in the 10 years after the financial crash. And we've had COVID since then, and all the money going to them since then. They must have 5 times easy they've made. These are billionaires that we're talking about. Have you made 5 times your wages in the last, since 2008? Of course not. But the rich have. The super duper duper super rich. It's all gone up there. It's, if you look at the last 15 years, it's been the largest transfer of wealth to the top in history. The wealth gap now, and this is factual, you can go and check it up, is higher than it was in Pharaoh times. Don't let the people on that nasty TV tell you, propagandise you into thinking that, oh no, people are asking for higher wages. There's more than enough money there for higher wages. It's corporate greed that's caused the inflation. User 779 says, hi Gordon, why we didn't see marches in the UK against this war? Or there is, but the media didn't cover it. Well, the media have propagandised people into thinking that they're standing up for democracy in Ukraine. You know, with all the flags. I've got to be careful of my wording here, but these are not. I mean, up until February this year, and go back and look. Type in Guardian, Telegraph, Washington Post, New York Post, New York Times, all of these things with the word Ukraine and Nazi or neo-Nazi, and up until February this year, you will see report after report after report on Ukraine saying that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe, on the planet, with a neo-Nazi problem. Up until February this year, the BBC, all of the media, that's all they would talk about. But then they flipped in February because Russia invaded Ukraine, and hey, the government doesn't like Russia and everybody's anti-Russia. So we've got to be anti-Russia now as well. The media take their cues from the government. They should be holding the government to account. They should be saying, excuse me, you say we're selling billions of weapons over, bit of a problem. Yeah, these things that they've got on their arm and these tattoos, they seem to be, what's the word? Oh yeah, fascist. Can we have a discussion? No. No, they wanted to support the war in Ukraine. Why? Because America told us to. And America have got the goods and the tapes. Joe Rogan said that first, says Seppi Jessup. I think you might be talking about the Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked children to nobody. Yeah, I think that was Joe Rogan who said it first. The fact we never saw live court footage either of Maxwell is sus, says Gobichik. Also, we haven't even had a picture of her. Have we? The only, we got that picture of her in the In-N-Out burger that apparently was fake. And we got an artist drawing from within the court, but we didn't even get a picture, did we? Do you think that was because, something might be said in that and they didn't want to... Easily Gaming says, I'm just happy I have some survival skills and can keep my family warm and fed regardless. I really do think people need to start really starting to think about, we might have shortages coming up. I've already said this before. People need to start understanding that food is not grown in the supermarket and start really looking after their food supply and not wasting any of it. It's going to be a difficult winter, I think. You look like Keir Starmer, says Joris Bonson. How dare you? That's the worst thing anybody's ever said to me. Ever. Oi lad, are ye a true Brexit geezer, says Walter White. Depends on what you say, true Brexit geezer. Do I think that leaving the European Union was a good thing and will be a good thing long term? Yes. Did I vote for Brexit? No. All right, bit convoluted. I didn't vote for Brexit. My thinking at the time, my feeling at the time was you can't have an in-out referendum without defining what out is first. Otherwise, what you're going to end up with is a load of bureaucratic red tape and nonsense, and them trying desperately for years to stop it happening. And how did that ring true? Since then, since I voted that way, I've realised that the EU is not really something we want to be attached to. Just look at the way they're treating migrants in Greece and coming from Turkey. If you want proof, if you think we treat migrants bad, well, go and have a look at Poland and Turkey, and go and have a look at the 4.5 million Syrians living in Turkey right now, desperate to get into the EU, that the EU won't have and won't aid Turkey with either. They said to Erdogan, we're going to pay you some money, and they ended up didn't. Yeah, he ended up having to threaten them before they give him the money. But the main thing with the European Union for me was I heard Mark Blythe talk about it. Mark Blythe is an economist from Brown University in America, Scottish guy, really good. He's the guy who predicted Brexit. He predicted the rise of Trump as well. Very smart guy, go and check him out. One of the things he said was, there was a guy in The Guardian that he agrees with, who wrote an article explaining that the EU is basically a way of driving Western European wages down to Eastern European levels so the European Union can compete with the Chinese on a global scale. I happen to agree with that. And it's hard to disagree with it. That's great for rich countries in the EU. That's great for exporting countries like Germany, which has its BMWs, its Mercedes, its chemical companies, BASF, all that sort of thing that are exporting around the world. That's fantastic, because not only will they export stuff, but their exports, well, they can be cheaper because they're taking advantage of Eastern European labour, of cheap Eastern Europe labour. But while it's great for countries like Germany and France with large exports around the world, it's terrible for other countries, smaller countries in the European Union that don't export. It's awful for most of Italy, apart from the bit in the northwest. Terrible for most of it. Terrible for countries like Greece. We've already seen how the European Union treated Greece when they had a problem. And obviously when countries in the EU have a problem, and they need money, they can't print it because their printing press is in Berlin or wherever it is, European Central Bank. You see what I mean? So perhaps us leaving the EU was the best thing to do after all. So yeah, does that make me a true Brexit geezer, Walter White? I don't know, mate. I don't know. Please look at what happened to Brian Harvey, says Kinky Malenki. Wasn't he that guy from East 17? Brian Harvey used to do ecstasy. He's the guy who, yeah, Brian Harvey. He's the guy who did so much ecstasy that once he ran over himself in his own car. Ran over himself in his own car. That was Brian Harvey, wasn't it? Yeah, he was hanging out the door high, hanging out the door, driving it, fell out the door and the car ran over him. Yeah, Brian Harvey. What happened to him? Didn't say. Yeah, what happened to him, mate? Here in America, we call it being Clinton, said Seppi Jessup. That list is long and distinguishable, isn't it, Seppi? Did any citizens in any country get a voice or choice in this stupid war? Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Ukraine are not going to win this war. There's only one way that this stops, and that's with peace, and that's with Ukraine saying, "Okay, peace, please." But now it's gone so far now with, it's difficult. That is. There was going to be peace, wasn't there? In March, they were talking about peace, and the Americans got Boris Johnson to go over there and scupper it. They're trying to destabilise Russia and failing miserable. There is no way you're not related to Sir Anthony Hopkins, says Mr. Critic. I wish I was related to Sir Anthony Hopkins. I would ring him up and say, "Uncle, Mr. Hopkins, sir, can you lend us some money because I'm skint?" Poland might have done it at the time when their subs were there so that they get the blame. Yeah, we know who was the hand behind the Nord Stream pipeline. Who does it benefit, America's got gas. It hasn't got oil. Well, it's got oil, but it's shale oil. They keep finding shale oil, which you have to frack for, which is really expensive, really dirty and really bad for the environment. So they can't really do that. And no oil companies really want to get involved in it because it's so dirty and expensive. This is why America keep opening up the the Alaska. I mean, they opened up the Arctic to drilling. Obama did that twice, but they keep opening up areas of Alaska for oil companies to go and bid on the land, and nobody's buying them because it's shale oil and it's got to be fracked. But they do have a lot of gas that they frack as well from underneath. I think it's Pennsylvania and elsewhere. They keep getting earthquakes, but that doesn't bother them. They all live in Washington, D.C. and Martha's Vineyard. If there was fracking going on in Martha's Vineyard, I'm thinking that the politicians in America would have a problem with that. But not so much when it's in Philadelphia where nobody lives. None of them live, So yeah, they frack gas. They've got a lot of gas and they want to sell the gas to the world market and sell it to Europe. Because nobody else really would want it because they'd annoyed everybody else. Are we living a nightmare in the UK, says Anonymous. Well, I hope we wake up soon if we are. Albacore 2020, Monzana says it will be XRP. Bitcoin is only prototype, too slow and expensive. XRP, I've heard that's the second time I've heard somebody mention XRP. That was the one that they froze for a long time, didn't they? Over in America, XRP. The government froze it for a hell of a long time, didn't they? I think I'm right in saying that. Alaska have got oil reserves, says Blender Vendor. Yeah, it's like I said though, it's shale oil they keep finding. If you actually go to the Wikipedia page on US oil reserves, and you'll see that they say they've got lots and lots and lots, but the wording is, they say they've got billions and billions asterisk, and then you look at the asterisk, it says unfound, technically recoverable. So they say they've got lots of oil, but they don't know really where it is. And also, they don't know if it is there, whether they can actually get to it. They haven't got as much as you think they have. No, Venezuela elected Juan Guaido, says Bourbon. Bourbon, I think you've been drinking too much of your name, mate. If you think Venezuela elected Juan Guaido, I think you've been drinking too much Bourbon. Only 18% of Venezuelans had ever heard of Juan Guaido when the United States declared him Venezuela president. Nobody, not a single person in Venezuela had ever voted for Juan Guaido to be president. Ever. And then the United States declared him president. Yeah, Venezuela did not elect Juan Guaido. In fact, if you think about it, if it doesn't work out with Rishi Sanook, Juan Guaido is available, you know? Just saying. Albacore says, you, sir, are deluded. Well, thanks for that. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. Thank you. Do you talk to everybody that way? Like when you talk to people in the street, is that what you say to people in the street, or do you not word things like that because otherwise you get punched in the face? You, sir, are deluded. The capital markets are not investing in Russia. Are you willing? The capital markets are not investing in... Why does Russia need the capital markets to invest in it? Russia has its own economy and its own resources and has literally detached, well, through the sanctions, has detached itself from capital markets. So it doesn't need them anymore. As for are you willing, I don't know what you mean. Are you going to say, am I willing? You're going to say I'm pro-Russian, aren't I? Come on. Retract the like, says Albacore. Albacore, go and check it. They've detached from the system. The rest of the world sanctioned them up the wazoo, so they went, okay, fine. We've bought up all this gold, so the ruble's backed in gold now. Check the ruble. Check the strength of the ruble on the global. It's never been stronger. I'm talking facts, Albacore, mate. Go and check it. Don't just say I'm deluded. Go and check what I'm saying. And also, don't talk to people like that. Don't come out with a comment like that. If you wouldn't talk to somebody to their face the way you write, don't write it. If you would talk to somebody in a way that would elicit them to bop you in the face like that, so you wouldn't talk to them like that, don't write it on the internet. And if you have got an argument against something I've said, then back it up with facts, not just, what was it? Russia, the capital markets are not investing in Russia. They don't need to. Russia has detached from that system. Remember, an end to the unipolar world? I've been doing this a long time, buddy. What do you think about Kanye, says AA147. His name's Ye. If he wants to be called Ye, I'll call him Ye. I don't mind. I think I've heard he's first album was brilliant. I haven't heard it myself. I don't know his music at all, but I've heard his first album was brilliant, and he's kind of gone off the rails slowly over the years. I heard something. I mean, he was talking about how like Kim Kardashian has kidnapped one of his kids and stuff like that. He's obviously got serious problems at the moment. But I will say, I think people have blown what he said out of proportion, because it was stuff that he said about Israel and Zionists. And, well, I mean, they blow that up out of proportion, and then they're ignoring actual racism within a hierarchy of racism within the Labour Party. There's somebody else saying buy XRP. I've heard a lot of people saying that, Alf. A lot of people are saying XRP is going to be sort of some sort of exchange mechanism. I'll look into it. You want to answer for Neville Chamberlain? Says Seppi Jessup. Right, is that I'm meant to apologise for him? No, I'm not apologising for Neville Chamberlain. Although I will say to the last guy who said that he was retracting the lights because I'm deluded. I will say the last time somebody was as wrong as you, sir, was Neville Chamberlain waving that piece of white paper, Peace in Our Time. Let's scroll down to the bottom. I didn't want to go live for too long today, but I'll take some last comments. Anything I ever say, I would say to anybody's face, says Dr. Ricky Smith. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? The internet, it brings out the worst in people. You know, I saw a meme the other day, right, where like this is basically every interaction, or nearly every interaction on social media, especially Twitter. Somebody will write, "I like scones," and then underneath you'll have 20 comments going, "Oh, really? You don't like BAPS? You hate BAPS, do you?" That's every interaction on Twitter and social media these days. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I try and if I wouldn't say something to somebody's face, then yeah, I try not to write it. And I've got better as the years have gone on, but it's more and more difficult, especially on social media when people are so dumb. Joe says, you tell them little Ricky Gervais, lad. Well, it's always the same three people. Ricky Gervais, Rick Mail and Ian Beale. Those are the three people. Is this pre-recorded, as I can't see any of the comments? No, Tony, it is live. But the comments, there's hundreds of comments, so I'm way up there somewhere I'm reading the comments, that's why. I'm somewhere now down the bottom. Michael says, yeah, he's got mental health issues. Well, this is another one of these things, isn't it? This is another one of the problems I have with liberals as well. You know who else has got mental health issues? Alex Jones. You would think that people would make allowances for these things, don't you? But liberals who are all about mental health issues and all about, free speech will then go after Alex Jones and Ye for free speech issues. If somebody they like says something bad, it's like, oh, well, he's got alcohol problems and he's gone to Betty Ford now and there's been a history of mental... Who's talking about that with Alex Jones? None of them. You know, they're quite happy with him getting this $965 million fine for saying something untrue. He said some children that had died weren't dead. And then afterwards, he apologised about it profusely. He couldn't stop apologising about it. He's retracted everything he said. He's apologised for it. And he couldn't, in this court thing, he couldn't even apologise. He couldn't even say, I don't believe that now. You know? He said that. He said something that was wrong on the internet about people that weren't alive anymore. What about the people who lied about weapons of mass destruction that cost 1 million lives? They're on MSNBC and CNN. They've got contracts. Their lies, they are lies. They weren't just saying something that they felt was true at the time, like Alex, and then retracting it. No. They said actual lies. The one guy, Clapper, lied to the Senate about unconstitutional wiretapping. He's got a job on CNN now, isn't it? One of the talking heads. I do find it interesting that, you know, the way these things are applied isn't equal. Yeah, Kanye's got has got mental health issues, and he's obviously going through some shit at the moment with regards to his ex-wife and their kid, their daughter, I think. Shouldn't that be taken into consideration? No, not at all. Why? Because he said something about Israel. Alex Jones, by the way, they fined Alex Jones for saying that these kids that had died weren't actually dead. Meanwhile, kids that were alive, that were trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein's island, that had all those famous people visit them and do all those things that the FBI have the tapes of, none of them have been faced any criminal charges or fines or anything. Whereas Alex Jones, the man I would like to point out, that was saying, yeah, there's this island and there's kids are there and Clinton's been there a bunch of times, and he was saying it a decade before anybody else, and now they're fining him and shutting him up. While actual kids that had all that stuff done on the island to them, they get no justice, and the people who did that awful, awful stuff to them, go free and face no consequences. Is that fair? Is that justice? You either believe in free speech or you don't. And if you're complaining about Alex Jones and what he said about those kids, but you're not asking any questions with regards to the kids on Epstein's island and who was there with them, then I think you've got your priorities wrong. Don't you? Michael says he didn't criticise Israel. He specifically was racist towards Jews. Michael, go and listen to the whole thing. Go and listen to the whole thing. He explicitly was talking about Jewish Zionists at one point. He was explicitly talking about Zionists. He said a lot of things. You're seeing snippets of it. Go and watch it all. Yes, he was racist towards Jews. There's no denying that. I'm not denying that. Okay? What I'm saying is, it's interesting, isn't it, as to what people get excited about and what is ignored. There's the Labour Party right now that the Al Jazeera documentary has proven beyond any reasonable doubt, if you watch it, if you ask me, is institutionally racist and operates a hierarchy of racism. And not only have the media not talked about that, but they'll talk about Kanye saying stuff about Jews, a rapper who's got mental health issues. They'll talk about that, but not institutional racism within the Labour Party. Not only will they not talk about it, the Tory party, who are 32 points behind them, they won't even bring it up to hit them over the head with. That's what the problem is, from my point of view. You really defending Ye's anti-Semitism? No, Montana, and I'm hoping that what I've just said clarifies that. Why can Putin bomb Kiev but Ukraine can't take out military infrastructure in Moscow? Well, if it wants to, it could try. I wouldn't suggest it. You saw what happened when they bombed that bridge in Crimea. Their electricity was took out like that. If they bombed Kiev, you're attacking the homeland of Russia. The Constitution kicks in then. All right, you want to bomb Kiev? You want to bomb Moscow? Yeah, all right. But there's going to be a retaliation, and there might not be a Ukraine there afterwards. I'm not talking about anything nuclear. Russia could flatten Ukraine with conventional bombs, just the same as America flattened Baghdad at the start of Desert Storm and the other one. I mean, if you think that Russia's going overboard at the moment with Ukraine, go and watch the opening hours of Baghdad. You just look at the way America just carpet bomb areas. They are holding back, Russia are. If Ukraine were to attack Moscow, they wouldn't hold back. That's why. May Harwold, do you think the new generation will turn against the current capitalistic society? I think capitalism is, well, like I said earlier, May, I think capitalism died in 2008, and it's just been on life support since then. I do. I think it's dead, and I think they're trying desperately to resuscitate this dead horse, and they don't know what to do. I think it's going to collapse the world over, and I think it's going to be a really rough time for us all. Is this really live? Yeah, it's 6 minutes past 6. I think you are fabulous, says Martin Lodge. To your face. Cheers, mate. Thank you. That's really cool. 1980s lefty says, Roseanne Barr has mental health issues too, but the left had no sympathy for her and cancelled her. This is another good point, 1980s lefty. Another great point. Roseanne Barr had mental health issues. In fact, you know, when she was when she said that stuff about the 8 balls, didn't she say that she took a load of Ambien? And I think Roseanne Barr had she shouldn't be alive. She had a massive head injury when she was younger as well. And that's affected her thought. And the left, you know, and by the way, Roseanne Barr has said stuff like this plenty of times before. She said stuff like this. She said crazy stuff plenty of times before. But they still gave her show. They still resurrected Roseanne. And it wasn't until she said that stuff against that congresswoman one night when she was on Ambien, and they cancelled it. It's nonsense. It really is. Whereas you can be open, you can operate a political party with a hierarchy of racism and nobody will call it out in this country. But a rapper says something against Jews over in America, and that's front page news. You're losing any sense of credibility, says Matt McGinley. Explain why, Matt. These sentences, they're just accusations. You're not basing it. You're not backing it up with anything. Explain what I said was wrong. And if you've got a link to put me to, or you're going to want to set me right on something, then fine, we can have a conversation. You know, I'm not right on everything, Matt. I'll admit that I'm not right on everything. And if I am wrong about something, then please tell me specifically what it is I'm wrong about. And explain why. Don't just say I'm losing sense of credibility, or don't just come at me with some sort of attack. Have a conversation the way you would if I was in front of you. Do you write any news portal blog? Yeah, it's on my website, mate, gordondimmack.com. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell got a 20-year prison sentence, says Montana. Yeah, for trafficking children to nobody. Hello, Salim. How are you? Thank you. Rishi in number 10 guarantees that Sir Keir Starmer will be next PM. It doesn't matter, LH44, whoever the Prime Minister is. It doesn't matter. They're all governed the same way. There is no Labour and Tory anymore. There's only WEF. There's World Economic Forum, working on behalf of Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab, and you will eat the bugs and you will like it. Doesn't matter who the Prime Minister is. All of this is theatre down there at the moment. Did you read about the assassination of our senior journalist Arshad Sharif in Kenya, says Salim Durrani? No, I didn't. Arshad Sharif. Whenever a journalist is killed, Arshad Sharif. Pakistani journalist Arshad Sharif killed in Kenya. Arshad Sharif killing. Prominent Pakistani journalist shot dead in Kenya. An investigation has begun in Kenya after well-known Pakistani journalist Rashid Sharif was shot dead by police at a roadblock on Sunday. What was he reporting on? He was fatally wounded while he was a passenger in a moving vehicle after it failed to stop. Yeah, okay. Pull the other one. He was a vocal supporter of ousted Prime Minister Imran Khan. He left Pakistan in August after complaining of harassment, and now he's been shot. It's a bit of a coinky-dink, isn't it, mate? Thank you for telling me about that, Salim. I shall look more into it. Yeah, Mike McCoy just said Russia could have taken Ukraine so easily by now. He's got a plan. That's the thing. The plan for Russia wasn't to take Ukraine. It really wasn't. The plan for Russia from the beginning was to just stop the shelling of the Donbass. You know, that was and when that escalated. By the way, it escalated massively up until the run up to the invasion. They've annexed the parts of the country I think that they really need. The eastern Ukraine, the Donbass area, which is mostly Russian speakers, mostly Russian speaking. You know how, like, you'll see on the news, you know, that these referendums, and I'm not saying that this referendum was a fair referendum at all, I'm not, okay? But I'm also not saying, I mean, on the news you had saying, oh, soldiers were pointing guns at them and telling them to listen. If you had a fair referendum in the east of Ukraine, they would vote to become Russia. I am certain of that. If you had a fair one, United Nations, you know, they would vote to be part of Russia. This is mostly speaking Russian area of Ukraine that has been shelled constantly by the Ukrainian side since 2014. 14,000 people have died over there, mostly Russian speakers. You know, I'm sure that they would vote to join Russia in a fair vote. I don't think what they had was a fair vote. You couldn't call it that, you know. It was in war zone. But if it was a fair vote, I'm sure that you would get the same result, that they would vote to become part of Russia. And that area, the Donbass and Crimea and, you know, the southern part, that's pretty much tactically, if you look at the area and you look at the geographical map, tactically that's all with Russia is NATO and Ukraine joining NATO. And, it, you know, I mean, they're pretty much a de facto nation of NATO now anyway because of the way NATO has defended them. But Russia's got a big problem with that. And if you know anything about nuclear deterrence and time of response, etc., under a nuclear attack, you'll understand why. But I do agree, they could have taken Ukraine so easy. They knew that the eyes of the world was on them, and they know how Western media works. So they know, I mean, there's been a hell of a lot. Imagine the propaganda if they actually had gone all guns blazing on Ukraine, and in the same way that NATO, the Americans did with Baghdad in Iraq, etc. It would have been terrible. I will, Salim. If I find anything out about, I'll keep an eye on that Pakistani journalist, Rashid Sharif. I'll keep an eye out. Thank you for the whiskey, the wishing bottle. Knick-knack back. Kinky Malenki says you can't just do whatever you want because you take SSRIs. This is a good point. I mean, just because you're depressed, it doesn't mean that you can take anything. But I also think they don't. I mean, if you actually look at the efficacy of SSRIs, I would rather somebody go running than take antidepressants. But that's just me. Don't take my advice. I'm not a doctor. I suppose I'll have to say that. Zionist overload on Kanye. They hate the truth coming out. So why not? This is one of the things. And again, just to point out, I'm not condoning what Kanye has said here or Ye has said. I'm not. Okay, but what I'm saying is it's interesting, isn't it? How they will elevate Kanye, somebody with somebody with mental health issues. They'll elevate him saying something against Jewish people or whatever he said. And he said a lot of stuff. Don't just focus on the clips. He said a lot of stuff. But they'll ignore actual racism elsewhere. You know, they'll ignore it in the Labour Party. And also, you know, why is it so important? Why are they elevating what Kanye West has said? Why aren't they elevating what Norman Finkelstein has said about Israel? That would be interesting, isn't it? Why aren't the BBC talking about Norman Finkelstein talking about that? He's much more clued up on Israel and all matters Israel. Why aren't they talking to him about that? Why are they promoting what Kanye said? Do you see what I mean? There's an agenda to everything that they report on. And their agenda is not to inform you. Their agenda is to keep you and your compatriots divided and complaining and hating on each other while they take off with all the money and the power and give it all to Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates at the World Economic Forum and their mates at Goldman Sachs. That's the point I'm trying to make. Tony says the head injury from when she was hit by that car should have killed her. It's affected her brain. Yeah, she's talking about Roseanne. Yeah, thank you for that, Tony. Matt McGinley says, on Sandy Hook, he relentlessly savaged the parents of dead children for his own publicity and gain. Okay, Matt. If he did that, what do you think the punishment should be? And remember, free speech. Should the family sue him? Okay, if the family want to sue him, they can. Should it cost $965 million? Okay, if it's $965 million, how much should the people who lied about weapons of mass destruction that killed over 1 million people? How much punishment should they get? Do you see what I mean? I'm not defending what Alex Jones said about Sandy Hook. I'm defending his right to free speech, though. You know, and to say he relentlessly savaged the parents, for a week or so he went after, but then he started to back off, and he's apologised incessantly for it ever since, and has said that he's got mental health problems and alcohol problems as well. This is something that the lefty liberals, they always take into consideration when it's somebody that they like, but because it's Alex Jones, you know. And might I remind you, Alex Jones, yeah, he said that stuff about those Sandy Hook kids, but he was also saying a lot of stuff about the kids on Epstein's Island. Why isn't anybody talking about those kids? Don't you think that what happened to those kids is worse than what Alex Jones said about the kids at Sandy Hook? Do you see what I'm getting to? And then you look at, Alex Jones, he was the one who was talking about those kids on Epstein's Island way before anybody else, wasn't he? Do you see what I mean? Okay, Alex Jones has been wrong about stuff. He has. He's been wrong about a lot of stuff. But he was right about a lot, going back a long, long way. Food for thought. Have you heard what's happening in France, says Spags? I heard something briefly the other day that there are protests in France about something or other. The French are always protesting, aren't they? Vive la France. I'm not clued up on it. I was during the Yellow Vest riots, but there's so much going on about around the world at the moment. I'm not really that informed on it, unfortunately, Sprags. His trial was an embarrassment for him where he was shown by his own phone to have lied to court, says Matt McGinney. Again, you know, how much punishment should he get? And if he's going to get punished, how much punishment should the kids on the people who did that stuff to the kids on Epstein's Island, how much should they? That's not even being talked about. Remember, this is presidents, possibly. This is actors. This is Hollywood elite. This is news presenters. This is probably FBI, CIA. This is when Julian Assange said, when the truth comes out about what's happened, Washington will fall. I'm pretty sure this is what he was talking about. And people are concentrating on Alex Jones because that's where the media are telling you to look. That's who the media are telling you to hate. If you want to know why Alex Jones has been fined $965 million for saying some kids that were dead weren't dead, and the people who did all that stuff to those kids on Epstein's Island got away with it scot-free. If you're wondering why that is, that's because the people that did that stuff on Epstein's Island are in your government, are in your courts, are on your TV screens, are in your movies, are in your police force. That's why. They tell you who you hate. They do. And they're telling you right now to hate Alex Jones. And forget all about that stuff on Epstein's Island, and forget all about Maxwell trafficking children to nobody, and forget all about Bill Clinton flying on the Lolita Express 26 times, and forget all about Chris Tucker and all the other stuff, and forget all about Mandelson and 14 different ways Jeffrey Epstein had of contacting him. That's Tony Blair's right-hand man. Right at the same time as Tony Blair is saying to the United States, with you whatever, in their illegal invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. He knew that the information he was being given was false on the WMDs, and he still went along with it. Did you know that Tony Blair was in Epstein's little black book as well? Did you know that? Wherever the media are telling you to look, whoever they're telling you to hate, think why. Do you like Rashid Sanook? No, and his name is Rashid Sanook. I am reliably informed by Joe Biden. His name is Rashid Sanook, and that is how I am going to pronounce his name forevermore. Being Russia-speaking doesn't mean you support Putin, says Jamie. Well, the people in the eastern Donbass were Russian-speaking, and Ukraine, Zelensky, banned speaking Russian. All right? And he also banned opposition media who were critical of him. He also banned opposition parties. How do you think they're going to vote? There's more to this. The people in the Donbass, they would have voted Russia. Maybe not in the 90-odd% or whatever, but they would have voted to be part of Russia and not Ukraine. They really would have. I'm sure of it. I know journalists out there who have said this as well. Good journalists who I respect. And they report, exactly the same way. It's not just the case of Russia speaking. They've also, remember, 14,000, mostly them, have died through the shelling by Ukraine at the behest of the United States in violation of the internationally agreed Minsk agreements, by the way. All of this is forgotten about in the media, isn't it? Just the same way as up until February in our own media, the same media right now who were begging to send more weapons to Ukraine, up until February this year, were saying that Ukraine was the most corrupt country on the planet and had a massive neo-Nazi problem. Do you think WEF, Klaus Schwab and Gates will get away with their plans, says user 832? If nobody does anything, then yeah. If none of us stand up, then yeah. Yeah, Jamie, the Ukrainian city in the east fighting against the Russians, you've got to, that's the Ukrainian army, mate, the Ukrainian separatists. I remember in Ukraine, wherever the United States go, and if you look at... you need to go and... I'd suggest everybody go and watch Ukraine on Fire. It's on Rumble. They took it off YouTube. It's Oliver Stone, by the way. Yeah, Oliver Stone did it. Go and watch Ukraine on Fire. It'll explain what happened in 2014 when the United States installed their man Yatsenyuk. I think his name was. Yats is the guy anyway. Victoria Nuland. Yats is the guy. F the EU. They installed their own government. And whenever they do this, whenever they're trying to destabilise a country, and in this case they're just trying to destabilise Russia on the border, they feed and they arm and they train the right wing, the most extremist, not just the right wing, the most extremist groups in that country. Same as when they went into Syria, they were arming and training Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra, you know. The same people that they said bombed the Twin Towers, they were arming and training them in Syria. You know, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. I don't think I can say that word on TikTok. You see my point, you know what I mean? And this is what they armed and trained this militia in Ukraine. So yeah, go and look at the Eastern Donbass. Go and look at the work of people like Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett, and they'll confirm what I'm saying. What if Russia wins in Ukraine? Will it be the end of hostilities? The end of hostilities is when Ukraine, say, okay, we'll have a peace, please. That's the end. Russia has got what it wants now. Russia has annexed that part of the country. Russia's got the strategic Crimea with the deep water port, which is to the Black Sea. It's important strategically, geopolitically as well. So it's got what it wants. All it wants now, all it's going to do now is just repel Ukraine, whatever. And however this escalates with Ukraine, Russia will just you'll get in kind or worse back, and that's pretty much the way it's going to be. And the United States is not. The United States. You've got these, you know, in America, you've got the squad. AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. I like her. She's a great actress. She really is. She's not a great politician, but she's a great actress. Her and the squad and 30 members of the Progressive Caucus 2 days ago wrote there was a politely worded letter sent to Ukraine. And the reason this has been sent out, you're pretty sure, you can surmise it's because AOC and some of the squad, they're being protested now. They're going to events and people are standing up saying, we don't want to get in a nuclear war. Why are you poking Russia? We don't want to get in a nuclear war. Stop sending money to Ukraine to start this nuclear war. So they send this polite letter. Basically, it's a tongue bath. They're being nice, but they're calling for détente, basically. But that's it. That's all they're going to do. And then the next day, they've withdrawn that letter saying, oh, actually, we drafted that a while ago and some staffer released it and she wasn't meant to. Yeah, this is pathetic. They're just going to keep carrying on and on and on and on, even if it means nuclear war. And there's nobody in America standing up to it at all. Nobody. If they're standing up to it, they're sitting down really quickly. And you've got to ask why. I mean, you know, that's not exactly bringing in the ruckus, is it? Which is what AOC and the squad said that they were going to do. It's not at all. France, Italy, Germany protesting to throw NATO out. Your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, it needs more people. It needs people in the streets to do it. There's an argument to say that if the dollar goes, then that'll be the end of NATO anyway. 2/3 of NATO is America. Yeah. They don't tell you that. They say it's like a load of countries. Yeah, 2/3 of the spending is American. Over 66%. It's not NATO. It's America. All right. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and just take a couple of last comments, and then I'm going to go. I need to get some food. You do think Russia will win, says somebody with Arabic writing that I can't read. Yes. Ukraine will end up surrendering. Either that or America will force a nuclear war. It's one of the two. Let's hope the dollar tanks and ends NATO, says Summer Girl 2767. Yeah, I'll end on that. Let's hope that happens and ends it. NATO is not a force for good, I don't think, in the world anymore. You know, after the 1990, there's no need for it to exist. Once the Berlin Wall came down and the end of the Cold War, there was no need for NATO. it morphed into something else, protecting energy around the world. I hope the dollar tanks and ends it, and America too. And then maybe what we need, in my opinion, with all this is some sort of amnesty. We need people to say, okay, this is what's happened. I've done some awful things, and this is why I've done them. Because my hand was being forced, or I was being blackmailed by this person or that nation. And we need people to actually come out and do it. And we need an amnesty of the like of after South Africa, when apartheid fell in out of South Africa. Because it's clear that America are blackmailing their friends. They're bombing their enemies and blackmailing their friends. And it's all done through these honey traps with Epstein and Maxwell. And it's absolutely cast iron for me. There's way more enough evidence. If this was a court of law, you could definitely get a prosecution. A judge would sign off on it because the amount of evidence that there is. This is a honey trap operation where they're blackmailing their friends to doing their bidding. Why else do you think Boris Johnson was over there in Ukraine putting the scupper in March on this peace process with Ukraine and Russia? That's why I brought up the AOC thing, by the way, that letter. I forgot where I was going with that thread, but that letter, I mean, in response to that letter, the White House said, no, it'll have to be Ukraine, not us. We're not in the war. It's Ukraine that have got to go to Russia. Well, when Ukraine went to Russia in March to talk about peace, the Americans got involved and sent Boris Johnson to put the scupper on it. Pretty bad when you give the country help, they take advantage of it and all want to be kings. Yes, that's right. Sevastopol in Crimea, says Dan Obius, was a Russian port, even if in Ukraine. Well, this is very true, but also, because of the Ukraine situation, that's pretty much why they annexed it. All right. Dodge Depp says, I think you're a very troubled man, big time. Thanks, Dodge Depp. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. I appreciate that. I'm a very troubled man. I'm very troubled with the state of the world. Aren't you? I'm very troubled that actual pedophiles are getting away with it. And they're in government and Hollywood and whatever. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. And everybody seems to care more about Alex Jones saying that those kids in Sandy Hook weren't dead than they were about actual kids who had all sorts of awful things done to them on Epstein's Island, possibly by presidents and actors and judges and all sorts of, and nobody cares and nobody seems to notice and nobody seems to want to ask any questions. But thanks for telling me that you think I'm a very troubled man big time. That's why. Personally, I don't think people who do that to children should be roaming the streets. They certainly shouldn't be running the countries, should they? All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll be back again soon. Please go to my website, sign up to my mailing list. You'll get a notification of whenever I go live or whether anyone I drop a video. I don't spam you with crap, and I don't share your email with anything. So go through to the website, sign up to my mailing list, and yeah, we'll talk again. Thanks very much, you awesome people, and thanks very much, you awful people who don't like me, who say I'm terrible and I'm troubled. I am troubled. I'm troubled with the state of the world. We need to start demanding better. Don't you think? Take care, everyone. Love you all.